Past Present is an immersive 3D single-player game played through an internet browser. Players are thrust into the everyday hustle and bustle of life in America a century ago. In the game, a player picks an avatar and experiences as the fictional character the big issues of the early 1900s. All avatars are designed to be confronted with financial pressure and the threat of labor unrest, and players have to shape their response to the challenges of the era so as to impart decision-making and critical thinking skill in the study of American history. Users will deal with labor strife as well as to earn money to support their families while engaging with multiple points of view. For instance, there are two newspapers. One a corporate booster and the other agitates for labor. Characters the player meets reflect clashing worldviews, from a furious socialist vegetable peddler to the mill's watchman, a loyal company man. Players will come to understand that history is not painted in black and white but in infinite shades of gray. The game is designed for middle school kids between 10 and 15. Around this age, teenagers' ability to evaluate the logic of propositions without referring to real-world circumstances, their improved cognitive self-regulation, and metacognition allow them to engage with, follow, and reflect on the game. The various viewpoints in the game goes beyond rote memorization and help teenagers to move from dualistic thinking to relativistic thinking, which coincides with Peter Seixas' argument. History curriculum must not develop only with attention to what history students should know, but also with an awareness of how they think and learn about the past in their own place and time. In the meantime, the game's setback lies in the user's inclination to perform media multitasking, which disrupt attention and learning. When this happens, the game may send an alert or block the access to other web page or app to better sustain user attention.
On History for Kids, the creator is a 12-year-old. It is a free history network for kids with reliable reference to historical articles. There are different forms of sources such as articles, worksheets, quizzes, games, and videos. It covers so many aspects in social studies beyond history, such as anthropology, laws, religion, and science. According to NYU Standard, this is helpful for students' ability of comparison and contextualization. The website also explains historical events using timeline. This can help with chronological reasoning and causation. Another strength of this website is that it is very colorful, and there are many pictures and coloring games. What's more, on the quiz page, they included a link for all the information needed for the quiz. It provides students with the opportunity to identify and use evidence to answer these questions. But on the downside, there's risk of increased screen time, which can take up time for sleep and outdoor activities. It may also interfere with students' executive functions, but we can adjust this by implementing a screen lock. It is age-appropriate since it's designed for kids by kids, but it's not professional. It lists Egypt, Middle Ages, Asia, China, and American as categories. Those are not parallel and can be confusing. One way I can think of to modify is to incorporate a world map and geography page on the homepage so that children will not get confused by the misleading categorization. In general, I think this website purpose is to serve as a handbook for kids who are interested in history so that they can explore and improve freely. But I'm not sure how effective it is for rigorous academic use.
This digital learning game is called Flight to Freedom and is created by Mission US. Players take on the role of Lucy King, an enslaved 14-year-old girl on a Kentucky plantation in 1848 who is attempting to flee to the north. The game has students make consequential and difficult decisions that affect the game's trajectory. Throughout the game, students interact with fictional and historical figures, examine primary source documents, collect vocabulary words, and more. By using technology to deliver engaging content, I think the game can promote greater knowledge of American history and civics. The game is designed for middle schoolers but can also be used for older audiences. Some argue that playing the game may be emotionally and psychologically traumatic for students, particularly those of color. After playing and analyzing Flight to Freedom, I believe that the game applies theories of adolescent development. For example, the game is designed in a way that recognizes that students at this age are in Piaget's formal operational stage. According to Piaget, adolescents move beyond the limitations of concrete mental operations and develop the ability to think in a more abstract manner. manner. In the game, students are placed in the position of an enslaved teenage girl in the 19th century. Although students have never personally experienced this, they're in the stage of development in which they can use abstract concepts like injustice and oppression to describe these circumstances. The game also uses Kohlberg's theory of moral development. Throughout the game, users must choose between completing community or plantation tasks, between helping their enslaved family's situation or doing what's best for the movement as a whole, between obeying orders and committing passive or violent acts of resistance, and more. This feature relates to Kohlberg's theory of moral development because the many decisions students make depend on which stage or level of Kohlberg's theory they're in. By the end of the game, users learn a lot about slavery in pre-Civil War America, both at the individual and at the institutional level. The game does not cover all the atrocities associated with slavery, but I think that was a good choice because it allows teachers to choose how to appropriately fill in the gaps. While the game is not meant to replace the classroom's unit about slavery, but rather to complement it. The game can be played individually or in pairs, so teachers can still encourage collaboration. I think that this interactive game is excellent and doesn't need any changes. However, I also think that teachers must inform parents before using it in the classroom and respectfully convince any concerned parents.
The game I chose is a history game called Mummy Maker on the BBC website. It's not exactly clear what age the game is for, since it doesn't indicate it. However, it's my assumption that it can be for children from 6th grade and up, which will usually be children around 11 years and older. Due to this, I found it appropriate for those ages since, according to New York City Public School guidelines, in 6th grade, students are introduced to the history involving the Eastern Hemisphere, and from there, their knowledge on Egypt only grows. So the game focuses on helping the children learn about the mummification process in ancient Egypt and the significance behind each step. It does a wonderful job of being extremely informative. The game is narrated by the chief embalmer and you're his assistant. The game also gives you background knowledge on ancient Egypt and Egyptian beliefs as you go. You have to do everything that the embalmer tells you to do. However, you get to make your own choices and pick what is correct. For example, they'll ask you to choose an instrument of what to use to remove the brain, what organs to keep in the body, how to write hieroglyphics, and so on. You get 3 tries or lives throughout the game to be incorrect, and you also have 3 clues. According to the Smith, Garton, and Murdoch article, the importance behind differentiated instruction is backward design, which is used here. In addition, this also shows what they were speaking about how many students learn differently, and it could be beneficial to change the structure of learning about mummification by asking questions and visual trial-and-error process. Something I found it struggled in or was lacking in, however, was the use of collaboration or help in socialization, which in the Brown text it's strongly suggested. The game could be adjusted by adding a little bit more of prior instruction or information before asking the questions. However, the clues did help with the discussions.
The game Branches of Power is played on a website called iCivics.com. The goal of this game is to learn and understand how the 3 branches of the U.S. government work. In this specific game, the focus is on the process of bills becoming laws. The game doesn't state a specific age group. However, I can estimate that it's for middle schoolers. As stated before, the goal of the game is to understand the different ways the 3 branches of government participate in lawmaking. There are tools throughout the game to help those who are at different levels of learning about the 3 branches of government. Strengths of this game is that the visuals are clear and it's easy to understand the transition of law from an idea to a bill and into a law. A plus for this game is that it's also available in Spanish for those who are Spanish speakers. Key terms are written in blue, which you can click and find out the definitions for. In the Brown reading, they speak about identity, and there are 2 different ways that you can identify yourself in this game. You can choose lawmakers that look like you or look like different types of people, and you can choose certain political beliefs that you believe in. A weakness of the game that isn't a complete weakness is how time-consuming the game can be. For example, when trying to get the bill passed into Congress, there's a lot of back and forth, and students with short attention spans may struggle with this. However, it does depict an overall realistic view of how the U.S. government typically goes through passing laws. There isn't much that I would change to the game. If I were to do anything to the game, I would add different aspects of how the 3 branches of government work together. I think that there are other features of checks and balances that are important to include into the game. And I think that it's also important that students hear that there's more than one way that elected officials interact with each other.
After examining all of our apps, games, and websites, we noticed that the most effective social studies online resources are the ones that achieve a balance between content and instruction. Resources that are content heavy and over-focus on curriculum do not differentiate learning or engage students. Those types of resources are simply lectures and writing and on the screen. In contrast, resources that apply adolescent development theories through their execution still allow its users to learn an adequate amount of social studies and gain additional benefits.